An interesting clip here from our friends Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max.
Staying, he'll be in Minnesota as their quarterback this season. I don't think that they move on from Kirk Cousins simply because there's money there. They got a decent offense, and he is a serviceable quarterback. It's hard to replace a guy who's had some mild success in Minnesota with a new head coach.
Yeah, I mean, a lot depends upon what Aaron Rodgers leaves or goes. But if he leaves, I mean, look, I see Kirk staying, and they'll be the favorite in that division. I mean, they're still loaded with talent.
Yeah, and I think Cousins over the last couple of years has made real strides to me. I thought like 4 or 5 years ago he was an empty stat quarterback. You know, you need 8 yards for the first down. He'll get you 6, like kind of a stat patter guy. But I think he's progressed from there. I think he's pretty good.
Again, not to turn this into a whole Kirk Cousins thing. That was Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max. Max is wrong because Kirk was, I believe, 30th or 33rd in the NFL in third down success rate on passes, meaning success rate meaning
you got you 7 yards.
Did you convert the first
6.
down? He frequently will get you 7 when you need 10. But that's sort of a national perspective on the Vikings' current quarterback situation, and maybe they will take into account if Rodgers goes to Denver in 2 weeks or something. You know, maybe that will factor into their decision making. But what I want to know from you guys is, now that we're staring at a new era of Vikings football here, you got a new general manager, new coach. Vikings are interviewing defensive coordinator candidates. It's a very much a blank canvas as you look down the road. They could retool the roster. They could run it back. Let's go around the room here. What are the things you are most excited for in this new era of Vikings football?
My first one is this. I am excited beyond belief, to circle back on the discussion that we had before, to see what they do in the coming months, to see what is this team like. We have, I keep going back to this, but it's true. We have no idea what Kwesi and O'Connell are going to do. We don't know what their plan is. Like, we think we've got general ideas, but that's probably at best it, general ideas. What's the roster construction going to be? Are they going to try to get young? Are they going to what current veterans off this team who Zimmer might have loved do they like but not love? So this is going to be one of the most interesting springs and summers from this team's perspective in a long time, because you certainly have some pieces that are good. You have a team that I think it can come back and be successful fairly quickly. I have doubts, unlike some fans, about 2022. But my first one is just an overall general excitement to see how this shakes out. And there are going to be more changes made, despite the fact that some folks are going to balk at that. But to me, that's a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I think, and there is, I can definitely sense from a certain chunk of the fan base this fear of like, changes might mean you go into a 10-year tailspin like the Jets or the Lions. And I just look at the history of this franchise, and if you just want to confine it to the history of the Wilfs' ownership of this franchise too, even when they've had to take a big step back and fire Brad Childress or they fired Mike Tice. All right, then they went 6-10, but they also started that season like 4-2, and they were deemed as being competitive pretty deep into the season until like maybe late November, early December. And so even though they finished 6-10, it was like they were 4-2 going into a Patriots game on Halloween, and it was a winning football team for a while. And then they progressively go, playoff contention, make the playoffs, NFC Championship game. Okay, now I got to fire Childress. It was like a year and a half step back, and boom, they're back in the playoffs in 2012, 10-6, even with a garbage quarterback. They whiffed on the quarterback, and they still went to the playoffs at 10-6. And so I'm with you on this. I think I look at the blank canvas on the road ahead, and I don't think, oh my God, you got to tread lightly, be careful. I think this ownership group has always found a way to keep things moving forward and at least be competitive, sometimes clinging to competitive over wanting to take an actual step toward Super Bowl contention. But I don't have any real fear of like the Vikings sliding into an 8-year tailspin or anything like that.
They're going to become the Lions, Phil.
That's not part of their 60-year history.
They're going to be the Lions.
It's 60 years. 60
they're going to be
years
the Browns.
Yeah,
No.
Dex.
My thing is that they're finally leaning into offense. No matter who the quarterback is, this team looks like they're finally trending towards being a more modern and up-to-date football team. It was a great run that Mike Zimmer was able to change the defensive culture and make this a defensive stalwart team for 4 or 5 years. He did a very good job at turning that around. But while that was being turned around, the game was changing to being more of an offensive-driven league. I believe, I forget who it was. I saw the chart. There's like a little flow chart of all the teams that have made the Super Bowl the last 20 years and where they rank on the offense and on the defensive side of the ball. And if you look at it, like outside of the 2015 Broncos, who like had the 25th offense and one of the best defenses of all time, every damn team that has made the Super Bowl has been a top 10 offense. Like 19 of the last 20 Super Bowls have featured teams in the top 10 offense, okay? The Vikings are finally leaning into that with Kevin O'Connell. And it might be the wrong choice to keep with Kirk. Who knows? But at least they're going to surround Kirk with everything possible for the best play calling side and weapons side. They have all that figured out. They're leaning in on the offensive side of the football. I think that is a intriguing part that Vikings fans should be obsessed with.
Yeah, you know what's amazing? I think the Vikings wound up like 14th in points per game this year. Like, this should have been, I get the offensive line isn't perfect, but the scheme felt dusty. Mike Zimmer wanting to put his thumb on the scale from like an early 2000s, mid-90s perspective was dusty. You know, we've talked a ton about Kirk. I mean, this offense led the NFL in 3-and-outs. Think about the trickle-down effect that has. You know, it's the buzzkill nature of a 3-and-out. And I'm not just blaming one guy. Like, you know, I've said my piece about Kirk. I think there's a lot of factors that go into that. Think about how leading the NFL in 3-and-outs also affects your defense. You know, people want to simplify it down to the defense. Well, when the offense leads the NFL in 3-and-outs, and mind you, the offense was good in the first quarter statistically, so a lot of those 3-and-outs happened second, third, fourth quarter. Your defense is getting out there much more gassed than normal, so there's such a, you know, it's cliche, but sometimes the best defense is a high-powered, awesome offense that takes a 21-point lead and leans on the other team with their pass rush. Let's see more of that going forward with the Vikings.
I don't think there's ever been a time where individual statistics on paper told such a different story as opposed to what the eye test saw.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because if you look at the stats, you're like, look at Kirk Shear, look at Justin Jefferson. I mean, that's unbelievable. And it was impressive. But the but there is, if you watch the games, you didn't come away feeling nearly the same way that you do if you just look at the stats.
Yeah. All right, speaking of the offense here, I'm going to give you this one thing I'm really excited for. So Cooper Kupp has emerged into one of the best wide receivers of the last 15 years statistically, right? He's always wide open, it feels like. So Cooper Kupp, I'm going to go a little bit stat geeky on you here. And I bring up Cooper Kupp because obviously Kevin O'Connell was the offensive coordinator. He also helped scheme, according to multiple reports. He was very involved in coordinating the pass game behind the scenes and whatnot, getting guys open. So Cooper Kupp ran 67% of his routes from the slot. Justin Jefferson was the worry on him out of the draft was, is he just a slot guy? Like at LSU, he was a slot guy. Can he play outside? And it's almost like the Vikings and Jefferson have gone the other way around. Like he played 70% of his snaps out wide. And he can do both because he's one of the 5 best receivers in the NFL. But here's the amazing stat. Cooper Kupp had 600 more yards after the catch than Justin Jefferson did this year. Cooper Kupp had 1,032 yards after the catch in 2021. Now, I believe that includes a couple postseason games as well in here. So if you want to back it up to like even 700, I don't even know. I don't know what his yak was. I could just do the digging here. But he had several hundred yards more after the catch than Justin Jefferson did this season. I want some of that. Like what are they doing schematically? What are they doing with their route concepts to get him so wide open? And then not only wide open, like when he catches the ball, he's getting an extra, 2, 3, 4 yards here and there per catch. Let's take a great wide receiver and put him in a modern scheme and see what happens with Justin Jefferson.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yeah, and Kupp is a genius too. Like he is a smart guy. But yes, if you put Jefferson, Thielen, Osborne in positions to succeed consistently, I think the potential is absolutely huge there.
And by the way, even if you take out the playoff games, he's still like close to 900 yards after the catch for the season. So it's like
I call it yak, Phil.
Yak.
Yeah.
I call it yak. Let's call it
Yakety
yak.
Love
bonkers. It. All right, what else you guys excited for? New era of Vikings football.
All right, I've got the simplest one, but I honestly think it might be the thing that this fan base this long-suffering fan base should be the most excited for, and it's this. You have an opportunity with an entirely new staff, new GM, new offensive-minded coach. I am most excited to see if they can finally solve the issue that hasn't been solved here in a long, long time. Can you find the quarterback? And I don't mean go sign a guy off, oh man, his contract expired and so we're going to sign him. I don't mean a year of TB12. Brett Favre. Oh my God, we can get Brett Favre, which by the way was great fun. I wouldn't take that back for a second, but I am saying, can you go out and for the first time since Denny drafted Culpepper in 1999 and arguably franchise quarterback wise, for the first time since this organization's initial season in 1961, when they drafted Tarkington, not even in the first round, can you find the quarterback who you can build around, who is your Joe Burrow type? It seems like there's like this fear of, well, if Kirk leaves, what are you going to do? I mean, it might get worse. You hired these people because of that. Like that's why if you are saying we can't get rid of Kirk because I don't trust it still, that basically means you should, as I told Dex on the comments portion of our show yesterday, that means that you should go in to Kevin O'Connell right now and Kwesi Phil and say, you're fired. Like if you're like, but what if you can't find if you don't think that they can do it, they shouldn't have gotten these jobs. So like the whole purpose is you hired them to become the first in forever to do exactly that, find the quarterback. I am extremely excited because it has been a problem here forever. And keep in mind, the Green Bay Packers have basically had the same two quarterbacks for 30 years, during which time you've had a carousel of QBs. Can that finally end?
So, because I think there's two ways that people are looking at the front office and the coaching change. There's one group that says kind of what you're saying, which is, okay, yeah, new minds, fresh thinking, modern thinking, and they're going to have a grace period here to build this thing the way that they want. And it might mean saying goodbye to some veteran players, trading Kirk Cousins, and drafting a quarterback, which is kind of risky, but like, your team hasn't been above 500 in 700 plus days. So like, how risky is it really? You're not winning right now. But there's a certain chunk of the fans that understand, yeah, there might be some big changes here, and we're just going to be patient for a couple years. But I think there's a very large percentage of the fan base that thinks that Kwesi and KOC are being brought in to do what Rick and Mike couldn't, which is take this current framework and collection and make it be better than it has been. That this should have been a 10, 11, 12-win team if the drafting was better, if the front office focused more on offensive line, and if the offensive scheme was more modern and the coach was more likable, right? And I think they're going to choose to do it their way, but I wonder where ownership stands. Does ownership talks about wanting to win a Super Bowl and win championships? Are they willing to allow a grace period to maybe take a step back in order to take two steps forward? That's the big wild card here. What does Ziggy think? What does Mark really think?
But Kwesi is going to, being a smart man, he's going to go in and basically illustrate for them why you can't just continue to go to the well. Guys are aging. I got a note. So on the show Monday, I called the Vikings an old team because they've got certain key players basically aging out. And I got a note from a guy that said, what are you talking about? This is a young team. I quit listening when you said that because that's not right. It's a young team. Okay. Let's look at the roster. The young players. How much across the board did they contribute? The entire third round of last year's draft was basically put in a closet and held hostage. So yes, if you can get the young guys to contribute, that's awesome. That's great. But the key thing is Kwesi. I don't think Kwesi's going to look at the older guys and be like, we got to keep them for 3 or 4 more years. Well, there's just going to be natural changes made based on people's ages.
So it's actually, I'm on overthecap.com. So the Vikings actually had projected starters going into 2021, the youngest offense in the NFL. Because you think about their offensive line, it's like, okay, Darisaw is like 21, 22.
O'Neal's
Ezra Cleveland and O'Neal are 25 and under. Bradbury's like 26. Oli Udoh's like 23. So their offensive line has no one even close to 30. And Justin Jefferson's like 23. And then Irv Smith was a projected starter, 25? Somewhere in there. So it's like youngest offense in the NFL, but an older than average defense and getting even older, obviously going into next year. But to your point about youth on offense, Kirk is 34, and a lot of these other guys are a decade, like most of his offensive teammates are like a decade younger than he is, except for Adam Thielen.
Yep.
So it doesn't really mesh as some of these guys, like offensive linemen, emerge into their primes the next couple of years. You're going to probably draft another offensive lineman, I would assume, in the first 3 rounds. It doesn't mesh up quite as well. I'll give you, speaking of offensive line, one of the things that I'm really, really excited and interested to see what happens is the offensive line itself. So based on their backgrounds the last couple of years, both Kwesi and KOC are very much used to operating with above average or elite offensive lines. The Browns in Cleveland, I mean, they put a ton of emphasis on, and the Vikings have put more emphasis on drafting offensive linemen. So it's not like they've been ignoring it as they have. The development process hasn't been there, and it's still a bottom 10 unit. The Rams had the second best pass blocking offensive line in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus. The Cleveland Browns had the 10th best pass blocking offensive line. When you look at run blocking, the Browns were top 5, and the Rams were 11th. So by all accounts, we're talking about top 5 or top 10 offensive lines in both Cleveland and with the Rams. So that's going to be, and it's not just who you draft. The Vikings have taken so many swings in the draft throughout different rounds, and Brian O'Neill is about the only one that you can say for sure has panned out in recent years. So there's been an issue with development. You know, is Mike Zimmer ignoring offensive linemen as well? Probably, right? Like he probably wasn't popping his head into offensive line meetings to
Didn't
see
even
what
know
they
their
need.
names, much less go to their meetings.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would say keep an eye on that. And then we talked about this earlier in the show, but what are they going to do defensively scheme-wise? They got 4 defensive coordinators that they've had conversations with. One of them, Wink Martindale, is going to the Giants, so take him off the board. But everyone they've talked to has a deep background in 3-4 base defenses. And the Vikings haven't run a 3-4 base defense since 1985, according to Judd's Google research.
I was only 15 back then, so that was a while ago.
Yeah. You hadn't even been introduced to Chill Boys yet in
No.
1985.
Why did it take so long, Phil and Declan? Why did it take so long for me to find the love of my life when it comes to boxers and long johns?
What's one word to describe how Chill Boys make you feel this time of year?
Revolutionary.
I'm collaborative.
Revolutionized.
Yeah.
Oh, collaborative.
Oh, hold on. Let me hear more. Let me hear more.
Because sometimes you need the bamboo fabric for comfort, and sometimes you need the performance band for performing, however you want to define performing. Could be golfing, could be doing a barrage of activities, but there's a collaboration between both the bamboo and the performance brand fabric that will change your complete outlook on underwear.
Love me some Chill Boys. Chillboys.com. It's a Minnesota-based company, the most comfortable underwear you're ever going to put on in your life. Trust us and the hundreds of people from Mackey and Judd and Purple Daily that have taken us up on this. Chillboys.com. Also, the 31st annual Choice Bank Minnesota Golf Show is back at the Convention Center in 2 weekends from now. Friday, February 18th through Sunday, February 20th. Tickets are on sale for just $12 and compliments of TwinCitiesGolf.com. Each ticket purchase includes 10 free greens fee passes and 3 bonus passes if you purchase online. That's MinnesotaGolfShow.com, presented by Choice Bank, your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers, Nelson Marine, Second Swing, and us, Score North. Judd and I are going to do, and Dex, you might wander over there too on
I
both
need a
Friday.
driver as well.
He
or a
lives
putter.
downtown. He's got no excuse.
Speaking of Skyways,
Like,
you
you
know,
can walk.
me and TB12 are going to take some. I take the Skyway. It's a 3-block walk outside, so it's not bad. And then I hop in the Skyway, and I can walk all the way to the
You
convention
don't get
center.
lost?
Maybe get lost, but I'll come out
I
with a
get
new
lost on
putter and a new
Skyways.
microphone. It'll be a whole thing. I'm really looking forward to the Choice
Gets
Bank
a little
Minnesota Golf
confusing.
Show.
Yeah. So, yeah, come check us out. We're going to be doing a special edition of Mackey and Judd on Friday and Saturday afternoon around like 1:30 from the Minnesota Golf Show. So check us out, the Choice Bank Minnesota Golf Show. All right, any other final things you guys are excited for here going into a blank canvas offseason?
I got one quick. Draft weekend. I am excited for Kwesi not to trade down constantly so that he can brag about having 15 picks. Seriously. I am excited for him to either make his picks and, hey, make some trades. That's awesome. That's fine. But I was so tired of I just bailed from the 3rd round, but I got 4 7th rounders. I honestly am excited for a draft not run by Rick Spielman.
Yeah. It always kind of felt like
I just was tired of it.
Rick was protecting himself. I do think he believed that, hey, the draft is kind of a crapshoot, and he's right. And so let's just get more picks so that we have more chances to hit on players. But 3 picks in the 6th and 7th round aren't the same as confidently moving up a spot for a blue chip player in the first round. But if you confidently move up and you whiff, it's a black mark on you, right? If you trade, but if you're not sure about Justin Fields, you can always just not pick him. You could trade back, accumulate an extra 3rd round pick. Hey, what do you want us to do?
Mac Jones,
the draft is risky. Yeah,
we can't take Mac Jones. Let's trade back.
And then if you take Kellen Mond and he whiffs, so that's a 3rd round quarterback. It's 3rd round quarterbacks don't pan out very often.
Go crazy.
Oh man. All right, Mackey and Judd. We'll see you guys for Write That Down predictions and an accountability session on tomorrow's show.